I think this morning has provided really great context for me to present the Hexagon story, and there's some points that were raised through the morning by a variety of speakers that I'd like to specifically touch upon. So our strategy is to basically build a vertically integrated graphite business based on the high quality and the purity that we're able to achieve at our upstream project in Australia. What we're looking to do is to market that material into both traditional industrial applications as well as the high growth technology sector, including energy storage. To do that requires a team with expert technical skills, strong commercial skills, experience in non-commodity type materials, long business experience with both bouquets and scars, and I'm happy to say that Hexagon views this as a very important landmark conference, and I'm joined here today by Michael Chan, our Chief Development Officer, Leanne Grove, our Chief Commercial Officer, and Charles Whitfield, the Chairman of the company. We think it's important. We're here to share our story, we're here to learn, and we're also looking for opportunities to collaborate. Quick snapshot, we're an ASX listed company. We have about 300 million shares on issue. We're capitalised at around $50 million. One of our major, we have about a 25% institutional shareholding, including a large holding by the Tribeca Natural Resources Fund. In essence, the theme that I'm going to talk about is about an emerging production story with a funded upstream graphite source and a very exciting, diversified, high quality, high purity downstream production and marketing scenario. This is the way that we like to describe our business. This is the framework in which we operate. And I'd just like to use these aspects of source, refining, product development, and marketing to frame this morning's presentation. So let's have a look at the source. The source is what we call the upstream. At the moment, we're leveraged entirely around our Mcintosh Project. It's located in the north of Western Australia. We're also alert and assessing a variety of other projects where we think the technical attributes meet the kind of process and markets that we work very hard on identifying. Let's have a look at the source. We're in the north of Western Australia, in the Kimberley region, which is an established mining district. We're very close to a sealed highway into the port of Wyndham, which faces Asia. We're not here as a mining company. We're here as an advanced materials company. So our resource, our JORC compliant resource of 20 odd million tonnes at 4.5%, that's a good start. We've decided that we're going to allocate our funding to actually looking at the technical aspects of what our material does, so we actually focus our expenditure in the laboratories. We've recently, about nearly a year ago now, we formed a very strong technical alliance with a group based here in North America, and they've helped us unlock and understand the graphite markets to a very high degree, beyond the extent of many junior companies, and that's really helped us to lift our strategy up and away from the traditional mining sector. You can see that that resource, though, is underpinned by what we call an exploration target of 100 to 200 odd million tonnes. And I'll come back to that shortly. Maybe this needs a battery with Mcintosh graphite in it. I don't know. This is what the project looks like. The top picture, that's the gently undulating terrain of the Kimberley. You can see one of the drill rigs out there. We think that this project will be mining around 2.4 million tonnes of ore, processing open pit mining, conventional flotation processing to generate about 100,000 tonnes of concentrate. Under the joint venture that I'm about to describe, we will have 49% allocation of that concentrate output, and Mineral Resources, a major Australian listed mine and mine services company, will be our joint venture partner and will operate the project. Let's have a look at that, because one of the unique aspects about Hexagon, and we were just referring to it as Andy was referring to in the previous presentation, and I know that we've had sometimes debate about barriers into entry into this sector. Well, I would argue that financing a non-commodity project such as graphite is a real barrier to entry, and we have hurdled that we have Mineral Resources paying for the feasibility, for the development, for the construction, right up to a key milestone of commercial production. We've also heard stories of people not quite hitting their ramp-up schedules or still struggling to get to full-scale commercial production. And so whilst they're releasing bad news to the market and their share price is going down, they have to go back to the market to top up their treasury. Commercial production as a milestone means that our shareholders are completely insulated from that particular risk. So it's pretty unique to have a graphite project upstream like Mcintosh to be funded and to have the operational and funding risk managed by a very significant Australian mining entity. I referred to that exploration target before. That exploration target is largely defined from geophysical data, airborne aeromag, and VTEM. Surprisingly, graphite's highly conductive. So these bands of graphitic unit stick out very prominently. Just a week or two ago, we announced that the drilling program, which Mineral Resources are running right now, we've intercepted in one of those targets that had never been drilled before, a 90-metre intercept starting from surface. So that bodes very well in our ability and our strategy to increase the resource base as we need to and keep our focus on the marketing aspects and the market potential of our graphite materials. So what is it about the Mcintosh graphite that makes us think that it's special? There's probably 4 key elements. Our ability to purify this material at a low cost. That's born from the fact that we're able to get good high concentrate grades and the fact that the impurities sit on the surface of the flake and are relatively easily removed. The technology that we're looking to employ to purify our material is an electrothermal process. The people that are working with us on this have been involved in this technology for the best part of 40 years. If we estimate that purification costs in China are around $600 to $700 using acid cocktails and all the things that go with that, we believe that our purification cost, based on the level of impurities in our material, based on the throughput time or the residence time, will be less than that cost. So that gives us a huge advantage, which we'll come back into and refer shortly, particularly when Richard Clark from Morgan's referred to the fact that purification doesn't have to occur at the end of the spheridisation or at the end of the cycle. Maybe it can occur earlier in the flow sheet. We also have a large flake endowment. I would estimate that over 50% of the flake in our projects is classified as large, jumbo or super jumbo. That gives us a lot of versatility. Our flake is not particularly thick, so it does give us versatility as to how we want to move that product range around. Our plus 60 mesh fraction expands. We haven't done a lot of work on this, but we get an expansion factor of around 220%. We haven't added any strange reagents. We haven't done any optimization work. It's very promising and it's encouraging. Again, it shows that diversity of end products. And finally, in terms of these key characteristics, we're very fortunate to secure beam time at the Argon giant XRD machine here in the US, operated by the Department of Energy. And that very detailed, precise atomic mapping, if you like, or atomic examination of a material showed a high proportion of highly ordered graphitic material, highly crystalline with large dimensions. And that's really encouraging for our ability, based on our purity now and our crystallinity, to try and start wedging in to the synthetic graphite market. And I think that's what Richard was, I'm not sure if I can see him, was referring to when he was specifically referring to Hexagon. And I'd like to come back to that point again when I talk a little bit about our product range. So that's sort of describing the source material. Let's just have a look at what an operation would look like. Basically, we go from the mine through a flotation concentrator. We would anticipate producing 3 products, concentrate products in 3 different flake sizes. And broadly, we've divided those product ranges into 3 lines. We have the expanded or the large flake line. We've referred to this one here as the electrode line. This is our ambition of being able to add natural flake into electrodes at a low proportion, but it also importantly includes a range of other industrial materials which are looking for high purity graphite. And then finally, we have our battery line, which would include a range of materials, both anode and possibly a little bit of cathode or conductivity enhancement type materials. That's the broad product flow. So let's have a look at refining, because this is pretty fundamental to our business case. Really what we're doing here is we're leveraging off the fact that we think we can achieve efficient, low-cost, ultra-high purities, 5 nines. So let's use battery anodes, given it's an anodes conference, as an example. So Richard, here we are looking at putting purification ahead of spheroidization. Compare that to the more traditional flow sheet, 95% product going in, yields of around 50%, basically a value product, 50%, and probably a reject or a lower value material coming out in the balance. In our particular case, we purify first. We're anticipating using a slightly different spheroidization technology, and Michael's got a lot of experience in this, and we're testing this at the present. But we're anticipating a yield of around 70%. But the thing is that the other 30%, or whatever that turns out to be, is also a 5 nines or a very high purity material that is destined or can be utilised for other high value uses. That's the difference, and that's the argument why that I think in our particular case, it appears to make economic sense to actually move purification ahead of the other downstream processes. So let's have a look at our product development. This is really leveraging off the purity of our flake, that we have got a large flake abundance, however, with a geomorphology that gives us flexibility, and also these easy milling properties. There's a real move towards very fine, very tightly specified crystalline material, even in very traditional uses such as lead-acid batteries, aside from sort of some of the more modern applications. And this is where our work is taking us. So here's this flow sheet again. You can see the 3 concentrate products that we're anticipating coming from our Mcintosh project. We then move into the downstream through this electrothermal fluidized bed furnace. 3 product streams, and then sort of the typical, whether or not we go down this intercalation, classification milling for our larger flake material. Basically here for this industrial electrode synthetic graphite substitution potential, it's effectively we see that as being a milling or micronizing and classification process. And then for the battery line, obviously we have the spheroidization and then classification and possibly milling. We are adherents of the 5 M's philosophy in terms of source and management and consistency of process flow sheet, and we think that that's a really robust framework within which to set up our qualification and downstream test work, and we certainly will be doing that. So the way we commercialise this is we do appreciate the long qualification and the qualification periods, and maybe that's another aspect that we need to reflect on, that once you get qualified, I think those relationships become very sticky, and it takes a lot to actually change supplier or customer. But we would like to start our qualification process with that termed the electrode line, probably in a range of more industrial type products, whilst we also undertake our battery materials qualification, which has actually started under Michael's supervision. And we will, a little bit subsequent to that, push ahead on the expanded line. So we anticipate, not too far away, having access to a pilot furnace, which is being built right now, and also setting up our own qualification furnace and 2 downstream lines as I've anticipated. Okay, quick look at marketing. I think that our customers will see us as low risk because jurisdictional issues, also low risk because we have a diversity of products. If one's not going so well, we'll still be able to supply them because we have a range of products that we're offering our customers. We actually intend to purchase our own share of concentrate, 49,000 tonnes. That's our share from the Mcintosh joint venture. Marketing, pricing is obviously a key issue. We've made our own direct lines of inquiry. We have now, through our US partner and also in our own internal contacts, have insight into market pricing. We believe that our basket price for our concentrate materials will be $1,500 US per tonne. If we convert that into Australian dollars, that's around about $2,000 a tonne Australian. In our pre-feasibility study, which we released in May of last year, we cited a rather embarrassing operating cost of around $1,000 per tonne of concentrate. It's embarrassing. It's way too high. It's a number that I guess, Charles, we inherited, and we see that coming down significantly, actually, to be around the levels that Andy was referring to, around that 450, 500 mark in terms of the forecast. But the important point is, even at that conservative or high operating cost, you get a feel for the kind of margins on an EBITDA basis that just the stage one project can throw off. And then if you look at why we're going down the value chain, you get information like this, which shows not only strong price increases for downstream product material, it also demonstrates that if we are able to meet the specifications, and I would suggest that in some cases surpass them for some of the synthetic materials, then we could be looking at pricing of anywhere from $5 to $20 a kilogram. So our marketing is really based on diversity of products and the quality of products. I've talked about purity, I've talked about the high crystallinity, and also the specific flake morphology, which I think gives us some technical advantages. And I think from a customer's perspective, they like that diversity and they like that enhanced technical performance, as well as the sound environmental jurisdiction that we operate in and the political risk. I mean, let's not get away from the fact that we are, I mean, this map really summarises it all. As we move from west to east, we go from, as Marsh have defined it, from the sort of red-hot political risk areas over to the cool green lime of Australian in terms of being really relatively stable. Given political events in Australia recently, I can almost hear Australians sort of sniggering about that. But in terms of an operating jurisdiction, it is clearly stable, and with respect to a regulatory framework in terms of occupational health and safety and management, environmental management issues, we don't present the kind of brand risks that perhaps operations in other places do. So just to wrap up, what we're doing over the course of the next 6 to 12 months is right now we're wrapping up at our upstream project at Mcintosh, we're wrapping up a drilling program. So far the outlook of that has been really positive. We're getting very encouraging results on a number of fronts, and Mineral Resources are driving that feasibility study, and we're contributing to aspects of that as well. In the downstream, we're looking to do more refining test work, and we're looking to build that up to actually having our own qualification furnace facility, and right now we are looking to see where we can site that. So, in closing, Mcintosh is an Australian project. It's being funded and going to be operated by a very imminent, very capable Australian mining group. We're focused on a downstream strategy that focuses around quality, be it particularly purity. There's a big difference in my view between 99.95 and 4 or 5 nines, because the whole issue is there's no such thing as a benign impurity. It matters what is in that 0.05. And as people are looking for more and more sophisticated applications for graphite, lithium and other things, they've got to mitigate those risks by keeping those impurities lower and lower, and the diversification of our product stream. Look, thanks very much.